in 2015, I was in LA. I was writing and doing real estate development at the same time. And I was in this fantasy football league. And that was when Donald Trump entered the election. And I just kind of was struck at how much politics started to feel like being at a football game. I had been to football games, the rallies, all of the energy suddenly was like somebody unscrewed a cap and just energy was flowing out into politics. And I literally turned to somebody that was in the league with me and I said, this is the game we should be playing. And back to how I can become very philosophical, that was like a lightning bolt. I felt like once those words came out of my mouth, I was hit with something. And I thought, man, this really could be almost the same game, really.
What were you doing at the time?
Yeah, it was so real estate development and also writing. And the league was actually, sorry?
That was in LA.
In LA. And the league was actually a league of assistants in Hollywood. So it was like this private group of people that were assistants to agents or managers or on shows. So yeah, at that moment, but I wasn't in tech, had never been in tech, knew nothing about tech, and wanted to make it. So I talked to a guy in one of the buildings that was in our portfolio. There was a guy who was doing a tech company. He was building a tech company. And I said to him, this is my idea. I put together a pitch deck. I emailed it to him. We talked about it. And he said, this is a great idea. I'm building this other thing, but you should go do it. And I was a little bit like, I don't know tech. How am I going to go do it? Right? I need somebody to build this with me. And if I'm being honest, I think at that time, and I think this is true for so many people, there's this belief that your ideas are worth value and you can just sell an idea or you can get somebody else to build it for you and you get to keep a big chunk because it was your idea and that's the important part. So I was like a little disillusioned maybe. I was like, maybe it's just not going to get built. And I changed companies, started doing real estate development for another developer. And then a year later, I moved to Asia for 4 years. And when I came back to the States, I had some family that moved to Austin. So I came to Austin and didn't think I would stay in Austin, actually. I was thinking about staying here for a while, going to Istanbul maybe to move. But I wanted to go to this event at the Capital Factory, which is like a VC, that they call themselves like the center of gravity here in Austin for startup space. And you were expected to pitch at that event. So I was just thinking like, what am I going to pitch? And in the intervening years, I had taught myself some no code, low code, throw a shout out to Bubble, learned some Bubble stuff and had built some things on Bubble. And so
Bubble's not a sponsor.
It's not, we'll use this and you can go get them, say, hey, you should, support this show. So anyway, I had ideas and I thought, I'll pitch those ideas, things that I had been building, things I was interested in. But I kept going back to this idea, like, no, there's something about this idea that it was just in my brain. I couldn't get rid of it. So I pitched this on a whim. Like I didn't prepare either. I just pitched it. And right away, the tenor of the room changed. And people always respond pretty much the same way with like a large chuckle and like, oh yeah, why hasn't anybody done that? And since that moment, founders and investors have just helped. I tell people, I feel like I'm just basically following the breadcrumbs where they're leading because people will introduce me or they'll do something. So that's a really long-winded way of saying I first had the idea in 2015, but really it was only in 2022 that I pitched it and started doing
So in 2016, when you pitched it, what was the sentiment then? Like, what did you think about it? Why? Like you said, ideas are dime a dozen. I personally believe in sweat equity versus idea equity, right? So what happened then? How did you end up in Vietnam?
Yeah.
How do you go from pitching the idea to going to Vietnam?
Yeah.
Pausing on it.
I mean, truthfully, so I pitched the idea when I was working for one developer. I went to another developer and worked for a year, was given a promotion that I felt like I had already seen the end of my development career. I didn't see
no path forward.
I didn't see a path forward with that company specifically, but also in real estate development. I learned a lot over the last decade doing that. I was ready for something else. And I was driving one night and I thought, I've never traveled and I always wanted to travel. And as soon as the word travel popped in my mind, the word Vietnam popped in my mind. So I actually thought that I would just go travel. Like
Was it a one-way ticket sort of deal? Or
No, it was a two-way ticket. I thought I was going to spend a month in Vietnam, about a half month in Japan, and a half month in Korea because my little sister had moved to Korea. And I had a return ticket. And once I left Vietnam after a month, enjoyed Japan. And when I was at my sister's house in Korea, I said, I want to stay. So I called the airline, figured out what I would do with my ticket. I met some people in Vietnam, some expats, and I just messaged them on WhatsApp and said, hey, do you know anybody that needs a roommate? Does anybody need a roommate? And went back. I just flew back to Vietnam, and it turned into a 4-year life, really. And I didn't mention that, but there I used English as a way in to start coaching foreign executives on U.S.,
mannerisms.
Yeah, well, U.S. business culture, right? Because what I had noticed, and even having relationships with some Vietnamese who worked for U.S. multinationals, it's okay if you're there because that U.S. multinational is probably run by locals for the most part. But when you want to transition in some way to working with Americans, the culture of the office is just different because we're a different culture. So there was a need for that niche, and just did that for like the next 4 years.
In these 4 years, did you ever think about the idea, or was it just in your own world?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with that?
No, I never thought about it once. And I followed American politics from a different country, from Vietnam. I would watch like YouTube news and stuff like that. And the game never popped in my mind. I was just watching it from afar, which was a very interesting experience to watch your home country's domestic politics as a foreign person in a different country, because you're removed from it, but it's still kind of part of you because you are an American, right? So that was a very interesting experience. And but the game never came back in my mind until 2022, when that moment of pitching, actually.
Small sidebar. What's one or two things you learned from living in Vietnam for 4 years? Like your highlight, or something you take away, or something you still use?
I think from like a 30,000 foot view, I would say the big lesson is that people who travel expand the breadth of their experiences, and people who stay in one place expand the depth of their experiences. And I think the balance of those two things can really lead to a deeper understanding and experience of life. So traveling, for me, every day was a lesson of there's some sort of discomfort because there's cultural comforts. And then becoming comfortable in those discomforts, and then suddenly being like, oh, I'm a little bit like that now. Examples like taking your shoes off at the door, right? Is something that growing up as an American, I didn't really do. Now I do, even though I've been back for 2 years from Asia. It's a habit. It's just something part of who I am. The more specific lesson, I think, that I would say is I was in Vietnam just visiting, actually. It was when I hadn't decided to move there yet, during what they call Reunification Day, and we call the fall of Saigon. And it marks the day that the country was unified, when our ally in the South was finally defeated by the Northern forces. And it struck me, the fireworks and the celebration and how happy everyone was to have a unified country, that they were celebrating what for my country was a defeat. And it's something I go back to often, to always try to look at the inverse of a situation, another perspective. And that was a lesson I think I'll take with me.